I love it.
Hello and welcome back to the Modern Leader Way podcast, where I'm joined by another fantastic guest, Gemma Kelly. Hi, Gemma.
Hi.
So happy to have you here on this sunny day. Well, it's sunny where I am anyway, so I'm making the most of it. Um, Very happy to have you on. And Gemma is a fitness and nutritionist expert, and I will get you to introduce yourself. And I'm really excited about this conversation because we're going to take it off in a couple of different angles. So over to you, Gemma, to tell us a little bit about you and what it is you're doing with your work in the world.
Oh, thank you so much, Emma. Thank you for having me as well, and for everything that you're doing, supporting ambitious women. I feel like the world needs more of us, in my opinion. As you said, I'm a women's fitness and nutrition coach. I have some face-to-face clients. I'm opening up a studio in Chepstow, which is taking up a lot of my time at the moment.
Amazing.
Yeah, it's so exciting, honestly. But most of my clients are online, actually, so they are all over the world. I've got clients in Australia and Japan and even New York as well. Yeah, I guess about my story, my backstory, if you like.
Yeah.
So I've always, I always put my hands up to my clients and say, I have always been a fan of exercise. I think it's important for me to explain that I do enjoy exercise, and it has always been a part of my life when I was at school, when I was at university. But a couple of years ago, maybe we're talking like 5 years ago, I was working in London and I was in the corporate world, the rat race. I was working as an events director, and it was a time in my life when I was not fitting exercise in whatsoever. I was absolutely like strung out. I was so stressed. My diet was pants, for want of a better word. And I was just really overly hormonal. And I kind of knew I wasn't living my best life, but the pressure on my career and everything was it just feels so real that there was no way I could slow down. It felt very overwhelming. And I suppose for me, slowing down, I didn't hit burnout. I probably was on my way to it, in all fairness, but the slowing down for me came when I got married and I wanted to have a baby, and I couldn't get pregnant for about 3 years. So I was sort of diagnosed or not diagnosed with unexplained infertility, and I was told to stop any type of exercise, not even running or anything like that, and to basically scrutinize my diet, like what I was eating, cutting out alcohol, absolutely everything. And it was a pretty miserable time in my life, in all honesty, not being able to, not having the option of exercise anyway. And then I was lucky enough to get lucky with IVF. And actually, I've got two daughters now. Both of them were conceived via IVF. When I became a mum, I suppose I just knew I needed to change things up career-wise. I loved the dynamic nature of events, and I used to work on everything from like major sports events. I worked on the Rugby World Cup when it was in England, and the Open Golf up in Scotland, and I worked on that, from everything from that to like luxury brand events as well, which were very high pressure type clients, as you can probably imagine. But I kind of knew it wasn't really fulfilling me, and becoming a mum really put that under the spotlight. And I'd always wanted to work in health and fitness, and so my husband and I decided that we were going to open up a gym, and COVID put a very large stop to that. I mean, literally, it killed it in like like we had an entire business plan. We had a studio, a unit that we were about to sign on, and COVID came and just sort of like
Wow.
killed all of the hopes and dreams on that. So big, not really a lesson to be learned because it was an unforeseen, but I suppose fast forward 4 years, we moved out of London, had my second baby. We now live in the leafy Forest of Dean, which is just 10 minutes away from Chepstow, which is where my studio is. And I'm now putting all my energy into coaching and supporting busy women in their sort of late 30s beyond, and basically just to live like a healthier, happier, to be more strong, to be more confident life, really. And I'm a real believer that, like, as women, we're so dynamic, and we're so resilient, and we don't need to put our health on hold, like as we do sometimes, to go after the career we want, or the family, or both. And actually, when I first started my Gemma Kelly fitness business, I was juggling it all. So I was still doing some freelance events work. I was I was a mum to 2 small kids and launching my business, and I was fitting the exercise in. And whilst, you know, I'm not trying to paint this picture that I'm a supermodel, well, I mean, a super woman, sorry, definitely not a supermodel, but we are all super women in our own right. But I mean, like, I have lazy days. I have days where I don't want to get out of bed. I like pizza. I like to drink wine and chocolate. But I just think we have to find a way that works for us. And that's how I've done it. And that's how I coach my clients.
Oh,
that's where we've come to. That's where I am at the moment.
That's where you're at. And actually, as you were talking, I was like, oh, I wonder if now, in hindsight, you could see that actually it's all like the COVID thing and the gym not taking off at the time. It's all worked out perfectly as it, you know, kind of needed to, even though at the time it felt like, everything's come crashing down around you. Would you have a sense of that now?
I think so. I am a bit sort of, you know, woo-woo. I do have a sense that things happen for a reason. And I also have a sense that you make the best of your situation and your opportunities. But I definitely think I'm glad that I don't live in London anymore. I'm happy where I am. And I love doing what I'm doing with my clients, 100%.
Yeah, it's amazing. And it just sounds like it's exactly where you're meant to be right now. And that might change and evolve.
Yeah.
But you've arrived at a place that's really suited to you. And actually, we're going to look at your human design in a separate episode. And actually, the brief look I had before we jumped on this call, I was like, of course. It's almost like you're in alignment with like how you came here to kind of operate and what you came here to do. So that's where it's super fascinating, which we'll get onto. Bit of a sneak peek for that to come. So I love what you said about you know, you found a way that works for you, juggling work, family life, kids, all the things. And I guess I've struggled with this my entire life because I was an active kid. Like I loved the team sports, hockey, netball. I was a netballer till about 25. I was a gymnast as well. So I was a gymnast till like 16, 17. Very fit, very strong, but always had like these body conscious issues. And actually in my 20s, I gained weight year on year. And fitting in exercise around my work and my career that was kind of like taking off at the same time became more and more challenging. And I would say I was still in that kind of like stop start energy around it. So I'd start something new, like I'd go to a body pump class and really enjoy it, and then that would fall off the cliff when I had a lot of travel that came up, for example. And certainly I know just before I got my last promotion in the corporate world, I had just got really into CrossFit. And I don't know if you know Anna Marsh as well from the sort of online fitness space.
I don't know her, no. I will look her up.
Yeah, so I think Liz knows her actually, but she was my first fitness coach. So I'm talking back in 2015. And I, with her support, lost quite a bit of weight, got really back into CrossFit at the time, resistance training. And then I got promoted at work, which meant I then had a longer commute. So I wasn't able to go to CrossFit at 8 o'clock class. I was too tired by the time I got home. And I tried joining a gym when I was in London and it just never went. So I cancelled that. And I know at that time with the stress of the job, I just got back into that stop start energy and I stopped. So it was all or nothing and I stopped. What's like your best advice when someone comes to you with that kind of like stop start, all or nothing kind of way of approach in their fitness and their probably diet as well? What's the conversations that you have with them? What conversation would you have with me to help me find a way like somewhere in the middle?
I think first of all, you're not alone. This is such a common thing. And as you know, modern women, we have so many responsibilities, and it can be really difficult to know where to channel our energy. And a lot of the time we are in this almost like self-preservation mode of having to prioritize our time into these buckets of time. Like, I have to put all my time into my work, or I have to put all my time into my my kids or my husband, or you know, whatever it is. I think the all or nothing approach is really common, and that's something that I coach against in my coaching, because the all or nothing method does tend to result in this stop-start process. I always say to my clients, you know, there's no such thing as failure. There is only feedback. So therefore, if you start a program, say you're doing a program, or you're doing a CrossFit, you've signed up to a gym and you stop going to that gym, in your case, I would say to you, well, you know, let's look at that. It's not a failure. You might think it's a failure, and you might tell yourself, I failed because I'm not going to the gym. And we talk a little about self inner talk as well, because that's quite important. But look at it more as a time to get kind of curious with yourself and say, okay, so that didn't work for me. Why didn't that work? You know, what's the feedback I'm getting from that? It was because when I started doing that, it was really, first of all, it was exciting. I had time for it. I was enjoying it. And then I got promoted to this other job, and I had less time. I was too much of a struggle to get up in the morning to go to it. So then you sort of work backwards down the chain and work on like, what can I do? And the all or nothing approach kind of puts a stop to that, because it makes us focus in on what we're not doing, which is what we think we should be doing. And actually, we really need to zone in on like the tiny little things that we do, because it's the small things that you do every single day that kind of make up for it. And actually, one of the things I coach with my clients is that I'm a big sort of rallier for at-home workouts. So whilst I do have clients who will train in a gym, because they'll have a membership and they've got all their kit there, most of my clients train from home with very simple equipment, resistance bands, maybe some dumbbells. I'm a big fan of strength training. So, you know, it doesn't have to be heavy, because we can work on things like tempo in order to like get the muscle to work for longer periods of time. But if your barrier to exercise is, I have to travel to get there, or I have extra time, and time is a barrier, you kind of want to back it up a bit and go, how can I fit this into my life? And so at-home workouts, I think, work so well, but it doesn't necessarily seem like it, because most of us have this idea of exercise being like, it has to be gym based. And probably for you, being somebody who was super active before and has done high level stuff like CrossFit, your brain is probably still in that mode where you think that I need to pick up where I left off, which was in that CrossFit gym, working at a really high end. But we have these peaks and troughs throughout life all the time, don't we? And we can't always pick up where we left off. Sometimes we'll get injured. I hurt my back in February, and I had to stop all kinds of exercise for about 2 months. And it was so frustrating. And I could feel like my muscle mass like dwindling, and like, you know, all the stuff I'd worked for. So when I came back to it again, I had to really like work on my mindset of, I cannot start where I finished. I have to start lower down. And that means like doing 10 minutes of stretching, building that up to like 20 minutes of exercise, and then go from there. And it can feel really frustrating, especially, you know, we are ambitious women at the end of the day, and we are used to getting everything like immediately and quickly. But when it comes to exercise, like, I think like, keep it super simple and work with your strengths, know your environment, and set yourself up for success. Without being too hard on yourself. At the same time.
It's so true. And I love that, like the whole thing around removing the barriers. So that not failure, but feedback, and then look at removing as many barriers as possible, because I'm guessing like cost might be another thing. You know, time is an obvious one. Cost might be something if someone's looking to hire a personal trainer and they think it's too much. So removing all that is a great foundation, I think, to start with, isn't it? And then
definitely
the whole thing around your abilities and the fact that, you know, we're not getting any younger, and actually we know logically that fitness, keeping fitter, is going to keep us more supple, flexible, younger for longer. And we hear about, you know, we're up against it when we go into our 40s with perimenopause. Like, we've had some great people on the podcast, as I know you know of Liz and her team and what they're doing around raising awareness with perimenopause, and the fact that it doesn't have to be something we're up against, that we can actually work with it. But still, there's all these, like, we're being fed all this information, and that it's harder to lose weight when you're with the hormones and things like that. And actually, so I had 2 knee injuries at separate times. So one, it was a meniscus tear, and it took quite a long time to recover. So that was one point where I stopped, literally fell off, went doing everything to nothing because of an injury, and then eventually got back into actually started running again, which is probably not the best thing, and then got another tear on the other knee, and then with some MRI scans realized I've got osteoarthritis, which is just wear and tear, right? So I've been carrying around a lot of extra weight probably since my mid-20s, so it's no surprise that my knees are feeling that. However, it does make me think, well, I can't squat under a bar anymore. But then what you're saying is, well, can you squat modified with a resistance band or without weight, right, at home in front of your TV or with some music on, which I love. And then where was I going with this track? So now, at the age of 45, I have just been diagnosed with sleep apnea, obstructive sleep apnea, which I've just found out about this week. So I'm still kind of like getting my head around what that means. But I know 100%, I know that this is a weight-related issue. That if I was to lose weight, I would resolve this, because like it's just, I know it's fact. And then that puts a lot of pressure on you to like lose the weight, lose it quickly, do everything you need to do out the gates to restrict your food, do as much exercise, work around injuries. So it becomes overwhelming. You know, I guess that is like a typical thing as well that people come to you with. What's your best advice to me right now before I go like guns blazing out the gates to do something? Because I'm very aware that I'm not going to do a restricted diet. I've been through that process, and I know what I need to do to eat healthier. But what's your best advice with someone that is dealing with perhaps an injury, perhaps a diagnosis, perhaps hormones and all that kind of thing? We're looking at someone holistically, and I know that's a very difficult question to. It's just like,
no, yeah,
generally what
but it's a really good question, and I think you've sort of hit the nail on the head with holistically, because an approach like that, and kind of an approach to like all women as they get older in life, is that we do need to have a holistic approach into anything to do with like health and fitness and wellness. It's one of the reasons why I'm learning to do breath work as well. So I'm doing like a year-long course with this amazing instructor called Christopher Gladwell, who's based in Bristol, who's like the guru when it comes to breath work, to try and add that, because it's, you know, we need to look at it in this 360-degree approach, which is what I do with my Elevate Her program, which is my kind of customized program I do for women on a one-to-one basis. And we will look at everything to do with where they are fitness wise. We'll look at sleep patterns. We'll look at stress. We do look at diet as well. And it's so important to look at all of those 3 elements, because if you're not getting enough sleep, that's going to affect your metabolism. And it's also going to affect how stressed you are. And if you're overly stressed, that's going to affect your cortisol levels, which is also going to affect your metabolism, which is the speed at which you digest food. And we're starting to learn a lot more about this. And you were talking about Liz and her team, and you know, I've worked with Liz before. She's done some webinars for me, for my clients, and she's fantastic at giving us like the proactive information, and it not being a terrified, you know, not leading into like, a lot of women are very terrified about menopause and perimenopause, like it's going to be awful for me, this is going to happen and this is going to happen, but it doesn't have to be if we understand our cycles better. So I suppose going back to your kind of question is that I think the first thing is overwhelm is, you know, can be a real killer. for and a no starter, a non-starter completely. And I talk to my clients about this all the time, because the first thing to do is to acknowledge that you're overwhelmed. And a lot of us don't realize it. We just think that we're busy. We're like, I'm just so busy. I'm too busy to do this, or I wish I could do this, but I'm too busy. And I think we need to back up a bit and accept the fact that it's overwhelming, and then sort of break it down into the goals, the small sort of goals. Now, I don't do too much in terms of sort of SMART goals as we're taught. I try and make it a bit more flexible and a bit more dynamic than that. But sometimes, you know, having a way to sort of measure and having a way to track, and I'm not just talking about standing on the scales, we're talking about journaling, seeing how you feel. Do you feel more energy? Do you feel more relaxed? Do my clothes fit better? Do I feel more confident? Those sorts of things. And I think with overwhelm, it's sometimes sitting down with if you feel really overwhelmed, like I literally have nowhere to start and I can't do one thing different to make a change, then I think the best thing to do is to sit down with an expert, you know, find a local PT or an online PT, just upselling my services there. But, you know, because we are trained to help people go through this, and there is so much information out there. It is crazy. And, you know,
it's overwhelming
like,
in itself, right?
It's overwhelming in itself. You know, I have clients come to me saying like, but should I be doing this diet, or should I be doing this diet? Like, but keto works really well, or carnivore diet, or I've just been told that I should drink red wine because it's full of antioxidants, but then I was told that alcohol causes cancer, and should I eat red meat? Should I be vegan? You know, it's just, if we listen to everything that is out there, we will not get up off the couch. It is mega, isn't it?
Yeah, crazy. Yeah. Okay, so I love that. So talk to us a little bit about if someone's interested to like speak to you about how you could work with them. How do they go about that, and like what's the kind of high level options, I guess?
So yeah, so I'm opening up this studio in Chepstow. So I will, if there's anybody local to the sort of Chepstow area, then I will see clients face to face for PT appointments and programs and things. But online wise, so I have my Elevate Her program, which is fully customized. It has a name because I wanted to give it a name, because I want to try and help women feel elevated, to feel better than how they feel, and almost push themselves to like their potential. Sometimes their potential that they didn't even realize existed because they're feeling so overwhelmed. And the her bit sort of stands for a bit like healthy eating, exercise, and kind of rest and recovery as well, which is where the more kind of mindfulness and breath work comes into it. So I have a website, which is gemmakellyfitness.com, and you can find me on Instagram as well at Gemma Kelly Fitness. And just drop me a message and I'll send you a link to my application form. And it's called an application form, but really it's not to sort of make it out like you have to be a very specific type of person to join, but it's really because a lot of people feel that they have very good intentions about wanting to do things, but we have to feel ready, willing, and able. And what that form does is it kind of takes you through some kind of coaching questions off the bat to help you realize whether you're actually ready to do it. And sometimes you're not ready. Sometimes we have to go away and we have to mull it over, and we have to, you know, get a few things wrong, or maybe get a few things right on our own, and then come back to it again. So they can access all of that via my Instagram and my website. And then we have a chat. So we book in a call and we have like a little chat about it. And we go through, you know, I always say it's 15 minutes, but I always end up over chatting because it's such an important, that first connection you have with the client is so important.
Yeah.
They have to make sure that they like you. You know, you want to try and get them to feel as comfortable as possible as well. Because it's a personal thing. It's a close connection that we have when we work together.
Yeah, I love that. And you are very approachable because this is the first time we've met. And I love what your shares on Instagram. So go give Gemma a follow, if nothing else, to sort of start to get to know you and start to take up some of your tips and everything. And I'll make sure the links to do that is in the show notes. I feel like there's more. And before we got on to this call, we were talking about, I've just come back from a Pink concert, and we were just talking about what an inspiration she is as a 44-year-old mother of two, busy artist that is, yeah, just like, I was in awe of how she moves her body, how strong she is to sing and contort her body dangling from the ceiling of a huge stadium. It's just an otherworldly, but also like really inspirational. And I feel like we need those kind of real, I know she's rich, famous, all the things, but she's really real. And like, if you watch her documentary, actually, she's really lovable in terms of like what she stands for and all those things. And I think we need more of those role models in our lives, right? Especially now as we sort of enter our 40s, because there's this stigma attached to aging that, you know, we've passed our prime, and, you know, all this kind of bullshit, which, you know, let's call it bullshit. It is what it is. And I think the more women we can look at and go, she's doing it, like, let that inspire you too, the better. So who are some of the people that you look to for inspiration, if there are any?
It's free, yeah. Do you know, there are so many, but I think it is easy to sometimes look at somebody like Pink and go, well, she does have it easy because she's wealthy and rich and she's got a personal trainer and she's probably got someone who does her diets for her and things like that. But she still has to put the time and the effort in to do it. But yeah, I think well, I don't know. Off the top of my head, I can't think of like, I try really hard to not compare myself to other people. So, because I have definitely been down that road before where I've like compared myself against other people and gone, well, they're doing it, so, you know, why can't I do it? But I do believe that we are so different, and we all have different difficulties and different challenges. So it's kind of like writing your own rules. And I say that to my clients. I say, like, your fitness program and your nutrition plan is yours. It can look like what you want it to look like. It doesn't have to be restrictive. In fact, actually, restrictive diets tend not to work particularly well anyway, but it just needs to be some sort of direction. But I mean, being fit and being active is, especially in kind of later life, is so important because it is going to dictate the quality of life that you have in your mid to later life. And I actually went to the Every Woman Festival in Cardiff this weekend, which is a great festival all about like women health education and empowerment. And there was a really good talk from an author called Christine Weber, who I'm not sure how old she is, but she's maybe, I don't want to say because she might listen and then I'll feel guilty, but for overaging her. But she was an older lady, and she was talking about aging positively and about how, you know, how we can kind of navigate that with grace. And she was essentially saying, you know, the more we are able to fit movement and exercise into our diets, the better quality of life we're going to have, the happier we're going to be, the more confident we're going to be to go through all of those things. But I think the thing is, it just doesn't need to be overwhelming. It can be really simple. It can be as simple as going for a 30-minute walk every, you know, four times a week.
Yep.
Or, you know, when you plate up your plate, make sure that half of the plate is vegetables, as opposed to, you know, and there are simple strategies that can go in place. So I haven't answered your question of who is super inspiring to me, but she is definitely inspiring to me, especially, did you say she's 45?
44, I think, yeah.
44, yeah, with 2 kids. So yeah, if she's hanging off, you know, poles, then she's doing pretty well, isn't she?
Yeah, so totally. Certainly inspired me to go, I was strong once, and I know that I've got that memory in there and I can get that back.
Yeah.
So
we are never ever too old to start. And that's the other thing that is an overwhelming thought, is that we feel that we're too old. And I turned 40 in January this year. And I went through the whole of my 39th year feeling like, God, I was not looking forward to becoming 40. I thought suddenly at 40, everything was going to go downhill. And we do have bigger challenges in midlife. We will experience more struggles and grief, and we kind of have to prepare ourselves, physically for that and emotionally, but with the sort of, the de-stress techniques and things like that.
Yeah. Okay. So I love everything that you stand for too. So thank you for coming here and sharing some of your wisdom. I encourage everyone to go check out Gemma on Instagram and get in touch if you feel called to do so. So thank you again for your time and
thank you
doing
so much.
amazing work that you're doing in the world. So, and I may well be reaching out to you for some help.
Do honestly, please. Anybody send me, people send me DMs all the time and I respond to every single one. I'm not like, I don't have huge numbers of followings, but, I like to be used as like a portal for trying to sort of drown out some of that noise as well. So I love people, popping me questions and things. Do get in touch.
Excellent. Awesome. There you go. You have your permission.
So, you do, yeah.
Thank you, Gemma. And guys, thanks for tuning in. We'll see you next time. And don't forget to come back for a little sneak peek at Gemma's human design. So we'll see you then.